Hey everybody, Tom Barnes here, stories from the 78 at Sketchbrook Brewing Company. I'm talking to a native, a son of Skokie, Krockey, who has written this book straight out of Skokie. Fantastic book, stories of you wouldn't believe, from Jimi Hendrix to Joni Mitchell to bathhouses on Division. All of these stories, Al puts it in this wonderful book straight out of Skokie. I'm going to talk to him now for this story from the 78, just steps from the very same yellow line that took him all the way to Wrigley Field to hawk merchandise over at Sports Corner. True story. We're going to talk to him now for this story from the 78. Al Krockey, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good.
Here we are at Sketch Brewing here in Skokie, where you grew up. Not at the brewery, but in Skokie.
I grew up 3 blocks from here.
How funny. I was reading in your book straight out of Skokie about you talking about growing up in Skokie, taking the Swift, which this is just to the east of us,
right,
that would connect you all the way to Wrigley Field, where you sold souvenirs by the guy that started Wrigleyville Sports, or one of the souvenir shops right at Clark and
he's got a
Addison?
store on the corner of Addison and Clark there.
So that guy you worked for before there was a store there.
Right.
That's a fantastic story.
Yeah, we had souvenir stands, and we worked on Wrigley Field property. And the Cubs were still owned by the Wrigleys. They didn't bother us. The guy I worked for gave the cops $1 a stand for each day that we worked there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, a business could go like that again, huh?
Yeah.
But you grew up in Skokie, and a lot of folks might not know that Skokie's kind of this enclave for Jewish families.
Yeah.
Like one of the biggest outside of Europe, here in not only Illinois, but right in the Chicago area.
Yeah. When my parents first moved here, I was only 6 months old. It was 1950. And the neighborhood, it was the apartment building neighborhood, not where the houses were. And it was mostly Catholic. And my friends went to St. Pete's, to grammar school, and they went to Loyola or St. George or Notre Dame. And when I was about 6, 7 years old, a big migration of Jews came here from the west side, the northwest side, the south side, and it became a Jewish enclave. But the neighborhood I grew up with started out mostly going to Catholic school.
Really?
Yeah.
So what was that like for you growing up in this enclave that was Skokie? Because it's outside of the city, but super close. You can hop on a train and get to the city. But you were, a working class family. Your parents doing their paycheck to paycheck thing.
Yeah.
That shaped you as you grew? That
shaped me as I grew. Hard work was part of the thing. I had a paper route when I was 7 or 8 years old. But it was the 50s, and it was easy growing up. It was much easier, I think, than today. We had to talk to people, and there was so many kids on the block that we'd have pick up baseball games and pick up basketball games, and we'd have dinner at 6 o'clock and go on at night during the summer. And we made friends with everybody on the block, and parents kept their doors open. If your mom wasn't home, they'd make you lunch, they'd make the other kids lunch, and that's how it worked.
I feel like when I listen to the generations that have come before me and they talk about growing up, especially in America, growing up in the 50s, 60s, like my dad's talked about it, they all say the same thing. It was idyllic. You stayed out till the lights came on the streets and you would go home. Depending on the time of year, it was really late. In the summertime, 9 o'clock when the lights were going on, but you had this sense of community, and I feel like that's something that I feel like our society is kind of lacking a little bit these days because of what I'm recording you on now, a phone.
Yeah, it was great. It was not only talking to the kids, but listening, finding an older guy in the neighborhood that would give you information and would teach you, other than school. Even at the ballpark, I see these old guys, they tell me stories, and I remember them.
Do you remember anything specific, either at the ballpark or growing up in the neighborhood, of one of the old timers in the neighborhood dropping some knowledge on you?
Oh yeah. In my book, I meet this guy. I'm already a teenager, but I meet this guy, and he owns a store down by Maxwell Street.
Okay.
And we go down there, and I end up buying pants and selling bell bottoms out of the trunk of my car.
At Maxwell Street?
No, out of the trunk of my car. I went to get bell bottoms when they first came out, you had to go to Old Town.
Okay.
So they were hard to get.
All right.
So I went down to Maxwell Street, which they call Jewtown, and I met this guy, Arnie. And Arnie said, well, I'll give you these pants. If you don't sell them, bring them back. And I sold them out of my truck on my car. This is in the book. And these kids would go into different hangouts and try them on in the washroom. And I'd send them over to the tailor for $1, and he'd tailor the pants. And I did that for a month. But Arnie became a mentor of mine. And there's another guy that's in the book from Florida that worked for these gangsters that worked in Cuba that became a mentor of mine, you know, that would give me advice, okay?
Business advice? Or life advice?
Life advice and business advice, both.
Would you say that Chicago was a different kind of city back then, or is it still very much the same in that way, just not as, those stories aren't on the forefront anymore, they're kind of talked about in the back of perhaps breweries and bars?
Yeah, they're talked about in the back of breweries and bars. And I went to the steam bath, to the old, you know, what we call the Schwitz, okay? And I met everyone from these judges to gangsters to business people, and I'd hear these stories from these old guys, and they tell me, you know, one guy was a gangster, and these guys would sit with each other and talk, you know. As a matter of fact, I was at Division Street Bass, and I was in there one day, and Sal Bellows is there, the author, okay? He's sitting next to a judge who's sitting next to a gangster, and you know, you can't get that knowledge.
How did you find your? So I didn't grow up in the '60s. Right. I grew up in the '80s. Right. So bathhouses were a thing that were kind of tailing off because of the AIDS pandemic, epidemic going on.
Right.
So paint me this picture. It's the '60s. You're palling around in Old Town, getting bell bottoms, going down to Maxwell Street, which is like where UIC is now, and you're sending people to Taylor in that neighborhood. What was the culture like with the bathhouses? Was it just like a place where people would do business, or like what kind of equivalent to like what people do at golf courses now, or health clubs?
Yeah, at first I was 6 years old and my grandfather took me there.
Okay.
My grandfather was from Lithuania. He lived between Division and North Avenue.
Okay.
I was 5 or 6 years old, and we walked to Division Street Bass, and I started going there, and I liked it. And then my father was going, and these guys were going, and I was going with them as a young man, and there was 2 bathhouses that had pools, and they'd throw us in the pool, and we started listening to these guys, and they'd sit there and they'd have a big meal afterwards. You know, they'd have
in the bathhouses?
In the bathhouse.
Oh, so they serve food in these places?
They serve food in there, and they had really good food. Okay, They had skirt steaks and salads, and you had a bottle of red and a bottle of white. It was strawberry pop and club soda, and you mix it together. And these guys would take a shot of brandy, and they tell stories, and you listen to these stories, and you get knowledge from it.
Oh, I never knew. That's why I'm asking. But
it was a whole culture. It was a whole culture.
And there was a bunch of them all over the city.
There was 3 that we went to. We went to the one on Division Street. There was one on North Avenue called Luxor, where what's this author? He wrote Knock on Any Door. He wrote Man with the Golden Arm. I can't think of his name.
I'll insert it later. I wouldn't be.
Elgar. Elgren. Nelson Elgren.
Okay, all right. I'm with you now.
Okay, Nelson Elgren went to the one on North Avenue, and it was a spot where the gangsters went, and the judges went, and the police went. It was Chicago, and back then there were fixers, and you know. You get a ticket, go see this guy, give him $10, and that was it, you know.
Oh, man, old school.
Yeah, old school. But it worked.
Were these bathhouses just like a kind of men-only type thing back then?
It was a men-only. They had ladies' day, and one of the bathhouses had a ladies' side. But I don't remember. I remember my grandmother going, you know.
Well, yeah, why let Grandpa have all the fun, right?
Yeah, my grandmother would go every month when she would have her menstrual cycle.
Oh, take care of business there.
Yeah.
Got it. Growing up, though, in Skokie, you were here until how long?
I was
How many
here,
years were you, like, your
Well, I opened
years?
up my store. When I opened up my store in 1970, I was 20 years, just turned 20.
And you're talking about a record store, right?
Record store.
Backlash Records?
It was called the Record Shack.
I'm sorry, the Record Shack.
It was a little shack. It was maybe 1,000 square feet and became very popular.
Here in Skokie?
In Skokie, here in Skokie. And then I met a girl, and we got an apartment in Chicago, and I started living in Chicago with different apartments.
What was Knox Avenue to you as far as your life here in Chicago and Skokie area?
Well, Knox Avenue was east of downtown Skokie, but it was right here. It was 3 blocks from here. Mm-hmm. It was a slew of apartment buildings. Okay, you had it was old Skokie. It was near downtown, and it was near my store. It was 2 blocks from my store, and my store used to be a hot dog stand. And when I saw him move out, I had the idea to open a record store, but I didn't really have the money. And in book 2, it tells how I got the money to open up the record store. I'm going to leave it as a mystery. It's a good story.
But you were 20 years old.
I was 20 years old, yeah.
So were you hustling when you were like 7?
Yeah, I was selling souvenirs. I was going around the country, and I actually made it when the Mets won the World Series.
When you say you made it, what do you mean?
I made the money to open up the store when the Mets won the World Series.
Okay, all right. The same year, 69?
Yeah, in 69.
Yeah, same year the Cubs blew it, basically.
The Cubs blew it. I was real. I'll tell you the story. You can edit it if you like. In 1969, it's the end of the season, and we're sitting at Sports Corner.
Yeah.
And I said,
were you guys in shock that the Cubs downfall?
Yeah, the Cubs had blown it in August. And I had gone to Woodstock that year, but that's a whole other, that's in the book. I was on stage at Woodstock. Anyhow, so in 1969, the Cubs blew it, and we're sitting in Sports Corner. I said, the Mets are and Baltimore was a big favorite. It was Baltimore Orioles versus the New York Mets.
Okay.
I said, the Mets are going to beat Baltimore. And Baltimore was a big favorite. I said, if they win tonight, they only need one more game. If they win tomorrow, they need one more game. Mm-hmm. I'm going to call the pennant maker in New Jersey and print up a screen that says, people wanted pennants back then. They wanted world champion pennants. So I'm going to print up the screen, world champion New York Mets pennants. I'll print up the screen. It'll cost me $20. I'll have it. If they win tonight or the next day, I'll print up 3,000 of them. They cost, back then, it cost $20 for a screen, and it was what do you call it, 20-some cents for the pennants, and a penny for the stick.
Oh, man.
So they win, and they need one more game to win the World Series, and we ship them to LaGuardia, which is right across the street from Shea Stadium.
Yeah.
And we get to LaGuardia, me and my 2 buddies. We get to LaGuardia, and we go to the freight area, and the guy says, you can't have them until tomorrow. Oh. We give the guy some cash. Oh. He gets us the pennants. The Mets are losing. We jump into 3 cabs. The Mets tie it up. We get there. They go ahead and win. We sell all 3,000 pennants for $3 and $4 a piece.
Oh, man.
And they had a parade following that a couple of days later. And we knew the hustlers, the guys that worked at the ballpark from around the country. And we sat in a warehouse by Yankee Stadium and wholesaled to all these guys that were working the parade. And I came home and I put $6,000 on my mother's kitchen table and opened my record store.
Because you had to have Mom sign off on it still?
No, but my dad, to get the store, my dad he was the head of the Skokie Park District, the guy that owned the store.
Oh.
And my dad called him, and he had to sign the lease.
Yeah, because you were not of age?
Yeah. It was $150 a month.
Oh my gosh! How old were you at this time?
20 years old. I was 19 when the Mets won. I turned 20. I opened Christmas before I turned 20. I tried to open Christmas time, and I was late. I opened like the 28th of December, and that's 7th of January. I turned 20 years old.
Man, oh man, you lived a lot of life in 20 years, let alone all the way till now. But that's why I imagine this is the first book of 3 that you're going to do, right?
Yes.
So this is all about 1968, and that was a big year in America for many reasons. But I remember hearing a story, particularly about the day that Martin Luther King was assassinated, and you were in the city smoking a little bit in a park right outside of Northwestern's hospital there. We ran into these girls on the L train going to Wrigley. We made a date for that night. This other couple came along with us, and we went into this park down by Michigan Avenue, and we smoked some weed, and we had no idea that Martin Luther King had been assassinated. Yeah.
And we...
so this is in April.
This is April 4th, 1968.
Yep.
And we drive down Division Street in front of Cabrini Green, which is usually fine. And I see these ladies crying in each other's arms, and I see these guys shaking their fists at us, and I said, what's going on? And this guy throws a stone at the car, and all of a sudden there's a guy on the, and my friend had his mom's Falcon.
Okay.
And there's a guy beating a umbrella on the windshield, and the radio didn't work. We had no idea that Martin Luther King, the radio didn't work.
Oh.
And it finally, he said, what should I do? This guy's on the windshield. I said, floor it. The guy slid off, threw the umbrella at us, and then the radio started working because he was beating the windshield, and the radio started to work. And it was set to WVON, which was the soul station back then. And they came on, and they talked about Martin Luther King being shot.
So you were right in the neighborhood where a lot of those civil unrest was happening. I mean, Cabrini Green, that division right there, division and Clybourne, where it kind of hits there, all that area over there. So that was the beginnings of it.
That was the beginnings of it. And the day before, the Electric Theater, which became the Kinetic Playground, opened.
That's up in Uptown, like Clark and...
Like Lawrence and Clark.
Yeah, okay.
It was an old roller rink. And on the way to going downtown, we stopped in a head shop. This guy told me about this new club that opened up, the Electric Theater, which became the Kinetic Playground. They're going to bring acts in that are like the Fillmore, all these big rock and roll acts. And we ended up there that night, and that started me going to the Electric Theater every week in the Kinetic Playground.
And that is a historical music venue of Chicago's past.
They had everybody. I mean, in '69, I remember seeing Jethro Tull, Savoy Brown, which was a headliner, and Led Zeppelin.
Some rock and roll heavyweights there, for sure.
I saw Van Morrison with Jeff Beck. I saw just B.B. King, Albert King, and Freddie King.
How does nobody? It's crazy to me that a venue like that, there's very little about it now. I know it's not there anymore. I don't know what's there now. Ironically, I used to live down the street on Lawrence and Walcott. So I know
condos. I think they tore it down to build condos.
Isn't that something?
Yeah,
they tear down something like that. But it was an old roller rink into this legendary music club that was, like you said, like the Fillmore out in like San Francisco. That was our version of it. Yeah. But you spent every weekend there for...
Every weekend there. I mean, they had great bands. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, you saw the Paul Butterfield band. You saw Muddy Waters there. You saw... Spirit. There was a band called Spirit.
Yeah.
You saw every band that was big played there.
So was that because you were in the music business because of the record store,
or were you before the record store?
Okay, so music was before the record store.
I actually to open up the record store, I met a guy that opened up a record booth inside the Electric Theater, and we became friends. He opened up Round Records on Sheridan Road.
Okay.
And he was friends with the guy that owned Gramophone Records.
Which is still there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Gramophone.
He sold it. Steve Nacon owned it.
But yeah, it's still on Clark Street.
On Clark Street.
Yeah, okay.
And so I started going to the Electric Theater and talking to this guy at the record store. And he's the one that, when I decided to open up a record store, I worked in his store for a month for free just to learn the ins and outs of the.
That's what they call an internship nowadays.
Yeah, an internship. I said, I'll work here for free. Teach me how to,
Heck yeah.
And back then he got me credit with the distributor, and it was really something. So the three of us were kind of like I don't know if you call it a co-op, but we were like a loose co-op. It was Gramophone, Round Records, and the Record Shack.
And so obviously you love music.
Yeah, I love music. Love music. Just since I'm a kid, Back then, when I was 10, 12 years old, we had transistors.
Yeah.
And we take the transistor to bed, and we either listen to a ball game, and if we just didn't listen to a ball game, we listen to music, and everything from LS and CFL to WVON to, all kinds of radio.
Who was one of your favorite jocks that you would listen to back then? Do you remember? Like a Larry Lujak, a Landecker?
Yeah, I like them all. I like Larry Lujak. I like Landecker. I like Jim Stagg. I like Ron Britton. Ron Britton had this thing called the Psychedelic Circus. And he was the first to play psychedelic music. and he introduced me to Janis Joplin, to Hendrix, and stuff like that. And I got my blues education listening to Purvis Spann late at night, who ended up going to, I had no idea until recently, I did the research that he went to Midwestern Broadcasting School.
Yeah, and that's what you did, because you have a whole part about, I mean, it's 1968, there's a lot going on. The Vietnam War is going on.
The Vietnam War.
And that wasn't a war a lot of young American men wanted to go to.
No,
so there was an out, but you had to go to college.
You had to go to college, and then eventually they had the lottery. And I lucked out at the end of somewhere in 69, I got a high lottery number. I didn't have to worry about going to college. It was, I wasn't gonna, I was 3 something. Mm-hmm. It was lottery numbers based on the number of days in the year, and I was 360 something.
Oh, that worked out.
I got lucky there.
So your time growing up in Skokie and then learning about the record business, literally you started a label too, didn't you?
Yeah. So what happened is when I had the record store, mm-hmm. there was a band called Mountain Bus. It was kind of like a Grateful Dead type band. Mm-hmm. And the manager was the guy that owned Round Records. So I got together with Steve Nakon, the owner of Gramophone, mm-hmm. and myself, and this guy David Listener. We started Good Records. And the idea was, it was before Amazon, we were going to sell direct, I said, why do we have to go through all these distributors? We have CBS distributing, or Warner Brothers distributing, mm-hmm. It's going through a one-stop, that's going through this. I said, let's cut out all those middlemen and sell directly to the stores, okay? And so I hired the guy that was the publicist for the Conspiracy 7. Okay, Mike Gold. And Mike got articles printed they had the Chicago Seed, which was the underground paper, which was above a club that opened up called Alice's Revisited, where they had good bands too. And so Mike got this article printed in the Seed, and it got published across America, that we were gonna revolutionize the record business, and instead of records listing for $3.98, they'd list for $198. And we get sued. We got sued by Mountain. So
really,
the record companies,
they didn't like you guys.
No, Mountain didn't know about it. The record companies, we were putting down the record companies. We were counterculture, but we were hip capitalists, to be honest. Okay,
sure.
It was an angle, and we were trying to do it, and the record companies enjoined our records, the band, everything, okay? And Mountain didn't know anything about it. And Mountain was supposed to play at the auditorium. They came to the airport and got threatened by their life, canceled the show, and Irving Azoff, who managed Ario, okay, tried to get a hold of us, and Ario was supposed to open for Mountain, and they ended up headlining the show. It was one of the things that took Ario, that helped Ario out.
Wow. Nothing like pissing off the man, you know?
Yeah.
That's always fun. You also had this story, you mentioned earlier about...
That's in the third book. So.
That's in the third book, okay. But going back to the first book, Straight Outta Skokie, 1968, you mentioned earlier about Maxwell Street. But going back to that story, there's a story within a story of you or your friend and Jimi Hendrix and Maxwell Street.
That's in the first book. That's in this book. So this friend of mine was going with one of the Leonard Chess and his brother owned Chess Records.
Yeah, yeah.
And they had 2 daughters and a son. And my friend was going out with one of the daughters.
Okay.
And my friend's father was in the car business. He always drove a new Corvette or fancy car. So he goes out to Chess's house to pick up the girl one day, and her brother's there, who was already working at the record company, and would go on to manage the Stones and stuff.
Yeah, this Chess was huge at this time.
Chess.
Yeah.
And so he says, my friend is the Monkees manager and Jimi Hendrix manager. I forgot the guy's name.
Okay.
And he said he's looking for someone to drive Jimmy around while he's in Chicago. So he takes the job, and he picks up Jimmy. He takes Jimmy down to Maxwell Street because Jimmy heard that they had a store down there called Smokey Joe's where the band guys would buy their clothes.
Oh.
So Jimmy got outfitted at Smokey Joe's and went across the street. It's also in my book to Breyers, and bought himself a hat. And Daryl decided to bring him to the north side to the Gold Coin restaurant where we knew about it, and we were waiting for him there. And he brought him to this restaurant. Jimmy also, during that time, had played twice in '68 in Chicago, once at the Opera House and once at the Auditorium. And he had met what became the Plastercasters. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
No.
Anyways.
Why should I know about them?
Well,
I feel like I've heard about them. I just can't place what they
these
are.
gals would take a phallic, okay, and put plaster over it. Jimi Hendrix was their first customer.
Oh, I have heard this story. Never mind.
So when we took them out to dinner, Daryl had taken him to visit the Plastercasters because they had the first mold of Jimmy.
And so is that something that Jimmy would have to sit for?
Jimmy sat for it.
Okay,
and,
that was in Chicago.
Yeah, he sat for it the first time he played Chicago, and I didn't see him. And then he came back to Chicago, and that's when Daryl brought him to the Gold Coin restaurant on Howard in California.
Oh, not too far from here.
No.
Wow.
And that was a big hangout.
Was it like a 24-hour pancake house?
Yeah.
So in the 1968, what stands out? I know you have a bunch of stories within this book, but what stands out to you the most that defines that year for you?
Well, there's three things. You know, starting out of the book when you have the riots in Chicago. Okay, I remember that vividly, and I remember going to the Electric Theater every weekend, and I remember my trip to Miami, which was really something. I met a girl, thought I fell in love, and she took me to, it was the first time I went to a pop festival. This preceded Woodstock.
Okay.
It was December of it's where the book closes, and I end up at the Miami festival, and I meet Joni Mitchell there.
Come on.
Yeah. So
you say Joni Mitchell like Tom Skilling in an elevator.
What happened was,
which you've done that too.
It
I
went
know.
from bad to worse. We decided to go. I had read in Rolling Stones that all these bands were playing in Miami, and we had no money. I had just lost this money on a weed deal.
That went south?
It went south.
Got it. Okay, fair enough.
And I have no money, and and my friend says, I got my parents' credit card, and Barry will finance our trip to Florida if we pick him up in Oklahoma. He was going to school at Norman, Oklahoma, at the University of Oklahoma. So we drive to Oklahoma. We have no money, okay? And I hadn't done LSD yet, and all my friends had done it, and I was afraid of it, okay? I was the last of my friends to do it. And my friend is tripping in my car, and it's a Buick 60 convertible that my father had given me. But there's no rear window, the plastic is out, and there's no heater. So we're wrapped in blankets. Finally, we come to the Oklahoma Turnpike, and we say, how are we gonna, and you paid at the end. And it was right before you got to Norman. I said, how are we gonna pay this, for the Turnpike? Yeah, we'll tell her we have no money, she'll let us go. So she says, that'll be $1.25. I said, well, we have no money. She said, you have no money? Well, you need, how did you get here? I said, well, we have this gas credit card. Will you take that? Nope. So she puts on a light, and over comes a state trooper that's parked on the side.
Oh,
it ended up being her cousin. And he comes over to the car and says, pull the car behind mine. So he pulled the car behind his, and he came out of Central Casting. I mean, he looked like a
Barney Fife type?
No. He was
A big ass state trooper?
A state trooper with the sunglasses.
Oh, the whole thing.
Bit.
Got it.
He had the round hat.
Oh, sure. Sunglasses, the whole bit.
But he was the nicest guy in the world. He says to us, he says, you know, I got 2 boys your age. It's around Christmas time. He says, if you got something of value, you can send me the money and I'll give it back to you and I'll pay the toll. So he looks at, there's a cassette player on the seat. I said, nah, you can't have that. He says, what do you got? What else you got? You got something in the trunk? So my friend goes in his suitcase. He pulls out a camera at first. He says, no, I got a camera already. Then he pulls out an electric razor. He said, oh, I always wanted myself a shit. He says, do you mind if I try it? And he goes into the toll booth.
Come on.
And he asked his cousin, who was the lady in the toll booth, to hold up a mirror, and he shaved in the toll booth. He said, boy, this gave me a good shave. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you $10 so you guys have eating money. And if you want your razor back, he says, no, you can keep the razor. He says, send me the $10. Merry Christmas. We went on our way.
Wow. And that's just a little bit of what is
that's in the book.
Your book.
That's in this book, Straight Out of Skokie.
Straight Out of Skokie.
1968.
And this is one of 3 that you have coming out?
Yeah, I'm working on the second one now. And I've got about 20,000 words, and there's even more stories in there.
Well, I can't wait. Where can people find information about you and the book and all your other books you got coming
go
up?
to straightoutofskokie.com is my website, and you can go to Amazon and purchase the book. And if you're a book listener and you belong to Spotify, you can listen to the book for free on Spotify.
Oh, fantastic.
So, and you can get it. You can also get it at Barnes & Noble, and you can get it through Goodreads, and you can get it through Google. It's available. But,
okay.
I have 75, almost all 5-star reviews on Amazon.
Well, fantastic. I look forward to going back in and rereading some of the stories that I read before this interview. But thanks for taking the time here, and we should thank the folks here at the brewery as well. This is where your book launch was.
Yeah, we had our book
launch
on
the stage here.
Right on the stage here. We sold 100 books. We sold out of books.
100 books, and you even have a story with that. Some guy had a heart attack.
A guy had
a
heart attack that started off, and
my goodness.
Thank God he got one of my old high school friends who I hadn't seen saved his life, giving him mouth to mouth, and he's living today with a stint.
Wow, you're just full of stories. Al, thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
All right.
All right, that is the story from the 78 here at Sketchwitz Brewing Company in Skokie. Tom Barney, Chicago at Gmail. If you have a story from the 78 suggestion, hit me up there or go over to the website storiesfromthe78.com. We'll see you guys later. Take care.